The AFL is on notice as Nick Dacos and the Magpies begin to flare, while Bailey Fritsch's goal sense is as impressive as his glorious mop of hair. 4 goals to Will Hayward took the Sydney derby away in a flash as the gallant Brisbane Lions count the cost of a win in the Q Clash. The Bulldogs desperately need a quick revamp, and according to some, Harley Reid is not allowed to get a cramp. This is Triple M Footy's midweek rub. As always, we're joined by the two-time All-Australian St Kilda legend Lee Montagna.
Hello, Rabsy. Hello, boys. Nice to be here. Massive games coming up this weekend.
Massive games coming up this weekend, of course. Daisy Thomas is here as well, the Drew and Flyer.
Absolutely. I'm up and about too. I'm feeling good. The footy's flying. I'm flying. Life's good. Let's keep it going.
And the big enchilada from AFL.com.au, Damien Barrett.
Hello, Rabsy, and I think I know why it is that you are feeling good.
Why is
You've
that?
got someone in your side. So I don't know who it is, but I saw you doing some, as we call it on the Saturday rub, some content preparation,
Yes.
as per Bill Brownless's content preparation.
Some
and I reckon
craft.
you've got some craft about to be unfolded
Well,
here.
as Rabsy touched on, if you cramp in the modern game, you shouldn't be playing. It's as simple as that. And we've heard that throughout the week. There's been commentary around Harley Reid. You know, he shouldn't have been number one pick. If you're going to cramp in your 7th game of AFL with 2 minutes to go and then come back on, you simply shouldn't be playing. And, of course, they were the words of your mate Damo, Kane Corns, my loose buddy now. He's sort of patching some stuff up. But I thought I could help him out with a couple of headlines.
Are you about to drive another wedge into this?
Yeah, it might be a small wedge, but I just thought, I'll help him out. It's all about having some over-the-top, exaggerated headlines to get some cut through. That's it. So I've come up with a few for him. We'll start with this one. Scotty Pendlebury should not be credited with the record for most possessions in the AFL, as 1,167 of his possessions were ineffective or clanger.
Like that.
Fair
So
point.
that's
And a
fair
few of them
enough.
are kick-ins as well that shouldn't count.
Take them. Well, don't you start. The performance of Elizabeth against Fitzroy in the Adelaide Football League was simply not good enough. You can't let a side kick 82 goals against you.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's fair enough.
Where was the leadership?
82. And if well, it's a great question. What's going on there?
Where are the on-field leaders?
Somebody step up and do something. Port Adelaide should strip Connor Rozee of his captaincy after playing through an injury. Jokes, I'd never pot Port. And the last one, this is my favourite. Dale Thomas should give up on trying to be funny and take his role in the media more seriously. Although he's ridiculously handsome and witty as all get out, he should stay in his own lane or I'll box him up like Swanee did. I think a few of them, I think they might get some, don't be surprised. Sunday footy show this week, he starts rolling with them. You can correct him and say, hey, my boy got there first.
Look, I normally defend him, as you know. In fact, you and I nearly came to Blues on it last year. I don't know where he was going with that one. I'll let him sort that one out himself.
There was a couple of people who cramped over the weekend.
That's fair. I mean, you're allowed to cramp. It happens a little bit. Hey, just on a
You're
side
allowed-
note,
you're allowed to
this
cramp.
is, I think, something for you for the sounding board. Have either of you yet seen the Tom Brady roasting on Netflix?
Yes.
So have you watched the full version? You
No.
would have seen some clips.
I've seen the clips only, yeah.
It doesn't do justice to the full version. It is one of the funniest things I've seen, the most politically incorrect. I don't know how you get away with saying these things. You should have a look at it.
Yeah.
Could we ever
3
get to that
hours
stage?
long?
Yeah, I know. You've got to
Of
skip
course
through.
we can't. We take ourselves way too
Imagine
seriously.
if we did that to a football player.
Mate, even his comments about the NFL looked into a $20 million investigation about the balls. Yeah. Should have just come to me. I would have told you for $20 million I deflated them.
Given you $20 million and admitted that we've deflated the ball.
Deflategate, as
Yeah,
they
good
refer
that.
to it.
All of it. It's unbelievable. So do yourself a favour, anyone
It
watching
did
this or
seem,
listening to
even
this.
though I get, and I'm as big as anyone is about this nanny state we are operating in, particularly in Melbourne and Victoria and the rest of the country, but even by my reckoning on that, there was some no-go zones there, though, Joey, that I looked
all of it was
it was
no-go.
really uncomfortable.
All of it was no-go zone.
All of it?
Fair portion of it.
If you're going off today's standards and what you're allowed to say and what people are being cancelled for.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that it becomes a roast, so, all bets are off
All
and away
bets
you
are
go.
off and everyone have a chuckle and then move on. But it was very, very
The
entertaining.
8 karate lessons a day was pretty funny, though.
Yes.
As you said, Joey, there's some massive games this weekend. Kick you off tomorrow night, Carlton versus Melbourne. We'll get your match predictions a little bit later on, but up next, Damo, it is time for your news, and we'll start with the Western Bulldogs. This is Triple M Footy's midweek rub with Joey, Daisy and Damo, all thanks to BWS. Dinkum or Fugazi to come, plus your match predictions for round 9. This is Triple M Footy's midweek rub with Joe Montagna, Daisy Thomas and this man, Damien Barrett. It's time for your news. Let's start with the Bulldogs.
We will, Rabsy. They are the story for the negative reasons, and they're valid reasons, though, in that the media's now seriously onto this issue. 3 wins, 5 losses to this point. It comes, Days and Joey and Rabsy. Just 8 matches after a review, which came 12 months after the recontracting of Luke Beveridge. You factor it all in, he's got the deal until the end of 2025. I now take the view that it's a holding pattern situation for both the club and him as well. I feel there's a feeling within the operations that it may well be his decision at some stage if things don't improve quickly. Now, a 3-5 scoreline, it's not ideal, but we saw two clubs, Carlton and GWS, have similar type scorelines at the same corresponding stage of last season and then surge. So that's the hope, clearly. But the evidence to this point, Joey, and I'll go to you first, is not tracking well for Luke Beveridge or the Dogs.
No, it's not at the moment. But as you said, they've still got time to salvage their season and try and sneak into finals. And I think that's where, to be fair, if we thought they were going to make finals, it would be no one had them top 4 coming into this season. So I don't think that was necessarily a really realistic expectation. They have a strong history of finishing the years well. If you look back over the past, they do come home generally pretty strong. So you're right, they do have time, and they get Richmond this week, so they probably should win that, get to 4 and 5, and away we go. I think the part...
Do you give them that?
I do. Yeah, I give them the Richmond win.
You raised such a good point, though, when we were discussing this before. Not only did we not, and a lot of us not have them in the top 8, but you've got them sort of on the run rebuilding or rebooting or whatever you want to call it, whatever phrase that we're not listening to out of Bevo's camp.
Yeah.
We just want to pile in when realistically there's excuses and there's reasons, and there's probably more reasons than excuses.
Yeah, I think we're trying as a media or some in the media to shift the narrative that this should be a premiership team and that they're not performing to that level and hence Beveridge should get sacked. Where I don't think really, there might be a couple of vocal people in the media that are trying to create that narrative. But when you really look at it, this is a team that at the start of the year or early in the year, Bevo knew weren't good enough last year. The back end of last year showed that. And he's regenerating this team on the run, and he's basically told us that. But it's almost
the problem with that is, though, the CEO said they're a top 4 team.
Midway through last year. And then off the back of the end of the last year, they probably realised that they aren't a top 4 team. And to be fair, a lot of people high up at football clubs probably overestimate where their teams are at. You could argue the same for St Kilda and Gold Coast and Adelaide, and all these other teams think they should be playing finals.
Yeah. And you can't come out publicly and say, we're between 6th and 14th.
Yeah.
You've got to sell some sort of hope and dream.
And we think we've got a top 4 list. That's fair enough to have that mindset. But just a quick one, Damo, when I touch on this list regenerating. Guys that played a fair bit of footy last year, particularly at the back end of the season when they were trying to play finals. Rory Lobb, Alex Keith, Caleb Poulter, Caleb Daniel, Anthony Scott, McNeil, Gardner, and you can now include Bailey Smith in that. All not in the team this year. That's over 700 games experience that would have all been regulars in the side. And they've been replaced by guys like Sam Darcy, Buku Karmas, Gallagher, Bramble, Garcia, Sanders and Clark, the debutants, O'Donnell, and James Harms is the only one with any experience that's come into the side. That's about 230 games, and Harmsy makes up over half of them, 150 out of the 230. So they've got 8 new players basically into this team that's a regular starting 22 now. So this is not a premiership team, a top 4 team. It's a team where Bevo on the run is trying to find the next group of players that can elevate to get to that level.
Days, people analyse lists both internally, externally. That's what we do on this side of the fence. When you look at the Bulldogs, they've got an all-time great in Marcus Bontempelli. They've got a club great in Tom Liberatore. They've got budding potential stars. You go to Jamara Ugelhagen, Aaron Norton. You can go down the rung. Bailey Smith before his knee injury. How do you view it, though?
Well,
does it fall away a lot? Does it fall away drastically? Is their bottom 6 pretty poor?
And that's what we sort of have touched on. The bottom 6 are so important to your club as role players and what they're able to do. But to your point, Joey, if you've got 8 of your best side who are very new to the caper, having 2 or 3 younger players in a side you can cover for. When there's big holes, you're going to get the inconsistency in their performance, in concentration, and that's why you get the inconsistency as a performance as a football club. So, these players, and I think we'd all agree from what we've seen of Darcy, Sanders, the other youngsters coming through, these are going to be players that should be there for the next 10 years, and they're going to become very good players of the competition. It's just at the minute you've got a big end of experience, the young kids, and probably the gap isn't their bottom 6 in terms of experience or output. It's in the middle there in terms of age bracket and demographic.
And then you move this conversation on from the Bulldogs mess that it now currently is. Liberatore is part of the next conversation, that being the concussion issues that he's now had. So there's been 4 incidents that he's suffered now in the past 30 weeks of football. You throw in the Tom McCartan situation from the Sydney Swans, the contact that he had with Callum Brown, and both those players have had histories of head knocks. We know what's happened this year to Nathan Murphy, Angus Brayshaw, to Tom McCartan's brother, Paddy McCartan, last year, and prior to that, issues with Marcus Adams and Paul Seedsman. Unfortunately, these two guys right now, there's no guaranteed future. And I don't want to be dramatic about that, but McCartan and Liberatore are now going to be facing some serious questions off field.
No, you're right. And I think that is now where we've evolved to as an industry, that some players that have had histories of concussions that get another one, your first thought is, well, hopefully that they're okay, that they might play footy again. But that's not the priority. It's just making sure that they are right. So I don't think it's too dramatic to have those thoughts. Because that's where we've got to. So we wish them well, and I understand the clubs are going to take their time getting them back out in the park, and so they should.
If they've got any concerns whatsoever, they should ring Paul Seedsman. I saw him in the rooms Thursday night after the Adelaide game, and he said daily it's a battle for him. Day in, day out, it is a battle with all the concussion symptoms, and they continue and are ongoing. That's a horrible way to continue to have to live your life for a very long time.
It's life-changing. These concussion, teammates as well, Daisy, it's life-changing, these concussion symptoms. So that is why it's way more important than playing games of footy. So that's all we care for.
Issue at the Lions, and they will, as far as I can read the situation to this point, not be too vocal themselves publicly, but they're asking questions internally over the now spate of ACL damage done to their players. The most recent examples link McCarthy and Darcy Gardner from the match just gone. Prior to that, back in round one, Kadeem Coleman went down with a different type of ACL. It was an opponent coming across his body. But last year they had Ashcroft go down.
Was that at the Gabba? Ashcroft at the Gabba?
Yeah, that was at the Gabba. And they also, too, in the off-season, at a training session, they had Tom Duday go down. Just to throw one more name into the mix, Sam Docherty damaged his knee for the third time at the Gabba in round one this year. It's clearly a talking point, and I know the way footy clubs operate. They do ask questions when there's a theme, and there is a theme now.
I think there is. It's more than coincidence, you would have to think. To have the five players at the Gabba.
Like not enough like quad strength, glute strength.
Surface? Is the Gabba firmer than some of the other surfaces? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been a while
I'd probably
since I've
say
played
it is.
there,
It's such a lush ground to go and play at. But in terms of, is that what you're looking into?
Well, exactly right. And even what is the solution, Damo? Even if they do sort of say maybe the Gabba is a factor, what's
I don't
the sort of
know.
outcome from that?
And there's issues at play here too because of the state of the contract with the Gabba.
Yeah.
Even the relationship with the government. I know footy clubs are loath to buy into these matters in such a dramatic way, but I also know the way Greg Swan runs an operation, and there's no way he won't be asking questions. He has to be. Yeah. So, and they are, and they need to. I'm a bit with you. I mean, I'm not an expert in the space. I don't know who he is, by the way, but I'm not. I don't know what it means, Daisy. In that, yes, there's 5, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah, and that's what Swanee will be trying to get to the bottom of.
Yep. I don't know what it means either, too, when John Longmire now, for the second time publicly, dips his toe into the water of a potential send-off, but doesn't want to embrace it totally. I get why he does it. He's such a clever media operator. I'll just remind people what he said yesterday at his own media conference on the back of losing McCartan early in a game against GWS.
Is it a reasonable approach to consider that at some point down the track? Maybe. If you've got people in the arc down in Melbourne that are watching it, only the really clear incidents, maybe it's worth a consideration, but I'm not jumping up and down about it at the moment because I know there's a fair bit of water to go under the bridge. And it wouldn't be to punish the player, just to even it up.
He's referring to a send-off rule there.
Send off, not come back on, red card.
Send off, red card, yeah. There's complications clearly attached to that. And I don't feel the Callum Brown hit on McCartan would be clear-cut enough to have an adjudication made in the moment on that matter. Having said that, I reckon you could quickly get to the point where if the Jimmy Webster hit on Jai Simpkin was the example in people's minds and the one that had to be thrashed out, you possibly could quite quickly come to an outcome.
Yeah, there might be 1 or 2 a year. It would only be if it was an intentional act. And we've seen all these incidents of Peter Wright and Toby Green and Callum Brown. None of them were intentional. So I don't think we need the send-off rule. That's what the sub is for, to even it up. If a player is out of the game injured, that's why they can bring in a sub. So you've still got 4 on the bench and the other team have 4 on the bench. That's my way of evening it up. I don't think there's a need for it.
I'm on board with you. It's all about the optics of the game now and how good it looks. You take one bloke off, you just go behind the footy, park the bus, and the game and the spectacle will be horrible to watch.
Is the only difference that we are taking, or I want to say we, the medicos are taking players off and ruling them out almost instantly now, whereas as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, they weren't. They were assessing and they were bringing them back on.
And that's just a bit of luck, or in this case, bad luck. It happens. Footy's a contact sport. We've seen it with injuries. If someone goes down with an injury early in the game or you get banged up, it makes it tough, but that's the way our game's played, and that's why some of the great wins when you look back through football clubs, have been when they've had no one on the bench and they've found a way.
Brisbane Lions last Sunday night.
So, that's all the reasons, and I understand why you might float it, but I couldn't see it happening anytime soon.
Well, the Lions have a huge game against Adelaide on Sunday. Of course, that is Mother's Day. We'll get all your round 9 predictions soon on Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub with Joey, Daisy and Damo.
Now on the Midweek Rub, it's... Fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a...
Damo, Gold Coast would cop much more grief for that loss if they weren't Gold Coast.
Yeah, fair dinkum. I like the way you've started this today, Rabsy. They just lose matches that they're not meant to win, and they just go back into the distance, and we don't care about them.
It's hard to disagree.
That's true.
Joey, Jake Saligo is the most improved player in the competition over the last month.
You would have to say fair dinkum without a deep dive. He has been sensational. He's a star in the midfield now. So Adelaide have found one, and he's going to be there for a long time with a bit of other young talent. So that's a great get. Good call.
Daisy, Matt always should have been fined for his role in the Maynard dangerous tackle.
Yeah, this would be... I'm going to go with fair dinkum. The players are starting to do this, and the only way to stop it would be to actually, like a dive in soccer, go and actually, penalise them somehow. Again, good luck to the AFL for trying to sort through that grey area, but players are lifting up, jumping on the ground as soon as they feel someone's on them.
Would a big fine work during the week? They review it and they say, you led with your head. Then here's a $5,000 fine. See if you want to do it again.
Yeah, maybe make it a touch more. The players are getting paid enough.
Yeah, okay.
$10,000, you think twice. Rather miss a game than get fined $10,000.
Damo, Patrick Dangerfield should genuinely consider to move back to Adelaide.
Fair dinkum. I like the thought. If they can't come to a good arrangement with the Cats, and I know he lives in Moggs Creek, and it's a beautiful arrangement he's got there, but why not? The Crows, it'd be a great storyline anyway. I'm coming at it from a... Mitch Cleary broke the story. Yep. I'm coming at it from a media perspective here, but I think clubs should, here's what I'd like to say, I think clubs should think outside the square more than they do. And like the Pendlebury possibilities, I don't think that's going to happen either, but I think something like that would be good for the clubs in question and the players themselves.
Has this been a conversation that's been had? Is that why it's been broken?
A conversation was had. Now, what form of it? I'll let Mitch Cleary explain the veracity of it, but I know Mitch well enough to know he's not going to float it unnecessarily. And again, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Mitch thinks it's going to happen. But it's a story. It's a talking point.
It's a talking point. A lot of questions get asked of a lot of players, and a lot of times you get knocked back. That's just, you're not doing your job if you're not asking. So it's not a huge story. I don't think he will, but I like your idea that clubs need to think outside the box a little bit more.
Joey, Sydney need to prioritise Will Hayward's signature.
No, that's Fugazi. I don't think he's a big priority when you're talking about Logan McDonald, Errol Goulden, whoever else is out of contract. Ollie Florent, Chad Warner's coming out of contract soon, isn't he, next year or something? No, I don't think so. He's a good player, Will Hayward, but he's not an absolute lock for mine to keep. But they'd want to keep him, obviously. But no, that's Fugazi.
Sticking with the Swans days, Sydney deserve to be outright premiership favourites.
They are, and that is fair income from what we've seen. And we have seen now a big enough body of work and the way they're going about it. They win everywhere at the moment. And it's good to see the way they're playing is first rate. And if they can continue it, come the back end of the year, look out.
How'd they lose to Richmond?
A slight dip against a side that managed to get it all right on the day. It's, as we've seen, every team's put in a one bad performance so far this year.
Damo, Ken Hinkley's admission of fault over Connor Rozee playing is admirable, but he shouldn't have the ultimate sign-off.
It's fair dinkum, although my take on this is he was just taking the heat for other people. And again, you can question or debate why and should he have done that. He did do it. It's the way he leads publicly. But it wasn't his call. It would have been other people's calls. And, he's wearing the heat.
It should have been Connor Rose's call, in my opinion. As a senior player and as a captain, you get the final say whether you think you're right to play to your best. The docs don't know. They're only guided by what you tell them in regards to what you're feeling and how you're going. Same with the coach. He's only relying on information that's been passed on from him, from the doctor and the player. So more heat should have gone on Connor Rozee. He should have been able to make that call himself.
There's 4 or 5 safety nets that it's gone through, and obviously they've passed, which is ridiculous.
Well, they said they passed. I mean, they put out a statement on the Monday after the previous game that he's got an issue with a hamstring.
It was ridiculous. And now they're going to pay the price. They come up against the Cats the next couple of weeks as well.
They panicked. They panicked against an opponent that they needed to beat and didn't, and now it's going to be adversely affecting them for some time.
Joey, he batted this question away on the Marty Shugord show because he's one of the nicest blokes going around. But Max Gawn is the greatest ruckman of the modern era.
What, you wanted him to answer that question himself?
I didn't ask him, Marty did.
I'll answer it on
I
his
would have
behalf.
answered if I was
I'd
Max.
say, I think absolutely. I think he's gone past Dean Cox as the greatest ruckman of the modern era. I genuinely believe that. So, yes, that is a great call, Rabsy. That's fair dinkum.
I reckon he's getting up into my favourite
Of
ruckman
all
of all
time.
time. Simon Madden sort of conversations.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, look, Madden kicked 577 goals. So just think about that. But, so he's not going to do that. But in terms of the rucking craft, he's clearly up there. I mean, he's going to be a 7-time All-Australian at the end of the year, isn't he?
Damo, Culture and Cherie Deer's interview with Abby Holmes in the Hawthorn Rooms will be hard to beat as a highlight of 2024.
Fair dinkum. You played that for us on the rush hour that I was on Monday. I hadn't heard it. I was aware of it. And yes, absolutely fair dinkum. It was just pure emotion and beautifully questioned and beautifully partaken in, both Culture and Mum.
Speaking of passion in the rooms days, even playing 250 AFL games and kicking 549 goals doesn't make you immune to carrying on like a full-blown nuffy in the rooms after the game, just like Peter Dacos.
Here's Peter Dacos. I don't know whether we can just grab Dakes for a minute. You're very excited, Dakes. Tell us what you're thinking.
Oh, mate, what a great win. What a great win. We gave them 3-4 goals start. They kept going forward to the ball, but we got them in the end. We made them work hard off the ball. Keep them honest.
How electric.
Oh.
What about your boys?
I'm going to give him an out here. He's in the era of being passionate because of the rivalry. They cut to him in the box 4 or 5 times. There might have been a couple of stubbies that have been
I was
deleted.
going to
to
say,
that
the
point.
catering in those boxes, he's
He's
knocking down a
produced
couple.
2 of the great footballers of the modern era. One of them, he's second born there. in
Having
Nick.
been one himself.
Correct. And look, when your son kicks the winning goal against the old rival, I think you've got to. I'll give him one pass. The rest of it's carry on, but for that week in particular, I'll give him a pass.
Pass for life in my eyes.
No, and more frothies too. Delete a few more, Pete.
Joey, Kane Corn shot Bambi going after Harley Reid.
Yeah, that's fair, Dinkum. he missed one there. As I said, I respect Kane a lot for finding content and finding angles. Very good at what he does. Off the mark on that one for mine.
Damo, Cardinia Park has been given another $4.1 million in the state
I
budget
saw that.
for maintenance and to upgrade the southern stand scoreboard. Fair dinkum or Fugazi. If the Cats can afford a couple of lands in Moggs Creek, they can afford to maintain their own stadium.
Seriously.
Yeah, fair dinkum. Well, no club, no institution, no individuals who work for and around and support the institution have been more benefited by government money being thrown around over the best part of 25 years from local, state and federal. So, yeah, fair dinkum.
You know, they've now got chin-chins at there at Cardinia Park, the restaurant. They've got everything. Seriously, they're turning that into some sort of precinct.
It's a place to be. Don't worry about the MCG and playing for the Pies or the Blues. Let's go to the Cattery and have a nice feed. Chris Lucas, tick.
Well, just on that, I'll stick with you, Damo. Whoever does fund it, for all he's done for that club and on our TV screens, the new scoreboard should be called the Billy Brownless Big Screen.
I hadn't thought of that and been caught off guard. Fair dinkum.
Yes.
I'm behind it. In fact, when he ever comes back from whatever it is he's doing at the moment, have we
No
established?
one knows where he is.
I think we know it's not to say, but whenever we're allowed to say and he comes back, we might put that on him on the Saturday rub.
And sticking with Bill Daisy, him not cracking the first 100 inductees into New South Wales AFL Hall of Fame is a massive miscarriage of justice.
Yeah, that's fair dinkum. I'm not sure what other names are on the list. I assume the first 30 odd are very handy. But
Texas dad.
if
is
you
one of
can't
them.
slot him into the 50-plus bracket, poor old Bill. His career, I know we take the piss out of him now, was a funny guy. He was a bloody good player. Really stiff.
198 games, 441 goals.
Yeah.
All Australian.
Couple
leading goal
after the
kickers.
siren, one from 78. I think it's
with
got
a
out to
fine.
now.
And you're a Cats fan
I
growing
was.
up.
I've got a photo somewhere of me and Billy. I need Mum to find that one.
Well, the Cats have a huge game this weekend up against Port Adelaide, part of a double-header on Friday night. We'll get all your predictions for round 9 coming up next on Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. Huge round 9 worth of games, starting with Carlton and Melbourne at the MCG. And, of course, you can hear them all on the Listener app and on Triple M. How do you see that game playing out, Joey?
Oh, it's a toss of the coin. Let's be honest. We've got no idea. It'll be 2 tough teams. It'll play, I think, another tight game, just like last year's semi-final that was an epic. Strong midfields. I think this will be a beauty. I'll lean towards I'm going to give Carlton the chance in this one. No real reason why. I just think maybe with their backs to the wall a little bit, they might win a close one. This will be a great game. Can't wait.
I've got the same view. I've got no idea on this. I'm going to go for Carlton for the same weird reasons.
I'm slightly concerned about the short break for the Ds. It becomes a factor. We saw it against Brisbane before they had their bye. They had a condensed block. And look, if they can overcome that, they're going to be bloody hard to beat. We know that. But I'm just going to tip the Blues at the odd chance they can run over them late.
Will tipped Adelaide last week too to beat Port Adelaide, by the way, didn't we?
We did. We all three of us did, yes.
There you go. So we've just all tipped Carlton to beat Melbourne. There you go.
There you go. The Friday huddle heads down the highway.
I love that we're surprised that we got one right.
to Team HBA on Friday night. Part of a double header, Damo Geelong versus Port Adelaide.
I just can't see Geelong losing it with the focus that they've now made on the equaling of the game's record by Tom Hawkins. He's been in the news for the wrong reasons. 4 games without a goal, but Cats at home. And again, I think Port will respond, but Cats at home.
Tom Hawkins will kick 5 or more goals this week. He'll be back on the goal kickers sheet. The Cats will be winning this one. If Port do beat the Cats here, you can't call them flat track bullies ever again, Joey.
I'll go with that. If they beat Geelong, then they will lose the flat track bullies tag. I don't think they will. I'm not as bullish about Tom Hawkins anymore. I think he's still going to play a role, but I think he's just going to be a bit part player in that forward line now. I can't see him kicking bags of goals anymore. He might do it.
They're not going to feed him this week, though.
No.
Port's defence last week was pox.
They'll get out the back of Port Adelaide, but it'll suit the smalls. I think it might be more Ollie Henry and Cameron and Myers and Close running back towards goal. Geelong shouldn't lose this one.
Freo versus Sydney. This is a huge game, Days. Freo are on form.
They certainly are, and their ball use is what's impressed me most over the last couple of weeks. A little bit of a shift there with just as simply as it sounds. They're taking the obvious option and making a decision quickly, whereas the first couple of weeks they'd look at it and no, and then the option's gone. Sydney, we know how well they're going. I'm just not going to tip against the Swans because they're flying.
I'm the same, yeah, and I think they'll appreciate being seen on the bigger ground there at Optus Stadium. I like them a lot, what they're doing this year, and I think they'll beat the Dockers as much as I like what the Dockers have done the past fortnight.
Yeah, this is my outsider. I'm tipping Fremantle at home. I'm presenting on Freo tonight. Their profile is actually in really, really good shape. Elite defensively, elite contest, and as Daisy just touched on, they've now found what they're trying to do on offense, and if all of it continues, they've got the perfect balance with their game at the moment. So I'm giving them a massive chance. I think they'll beat Sydney, and next week the narrative around Fremantle will change and they'll be starting to be put up in the bracket of those top 6 teams.
How good's Hayden Young going?
Yeah. He's a star.
He has become a very good player. Talk about most improved in the competition. He has certainly been the conversation and got a sneaky right foot on him as well.
That goal in traffic on Sunday was incredible.
Yep.
Joey, Hawthorn versus St Kilda. The Hawks got a backs-to-the-wall win last weekend. Can they do it again?
Oh, slightly nervous for St Kilda. They probably can. I'm just going to trust Ross Lyon to find a way to win, but Saints are going okay. But, yeah, the Hawks are a dangerous team, but I'm sticking fat with Ross.
Unsure, Saints.
Same.
Right. Essendon versus the Giants, Damo at Marvel Stadium on Saturday afternoon.
Just going to go back to what I felt at the start of the year, that GWS was better than Essendon, and I know that can sometimes be dangerous, but I've got no other reason to tip the Giants in this because Essendon are going nicely. But I'm going to go Giants.
I'm not sold on the Bombers still. I know I say this every week, but I just don't know. I think they're probably going to end up playing finals. They've got a really winnable next stretch of matches with North, Richmond and the Suns in their next 3. If they roll the Giants, I think I'd take them more seriously. I can't see it happening. And Toby Green, who's also been out of form, he's getting a goal for a couple of weeks.
Why is that, Joey?
I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but he's struggling. Yeah.
He's only gone goalless once in both the 2023 and 2022. And done that in the last 2 weeks now. So I think he gets back on the goal kickers list as well. I'm giving the Star one more chance, and I think the GWS Giants get it done quite comprehensively.
The Bombers got embarrassed by the Giants last year, if you remember. They got touched up massively. So I think that Essendon, look, it's going to be fascinating to watch. They could lose this by 40, and we'll be like, oh, there's Essendon. Or they could really challenge, and we go, oh, wow, they've done it again. But I think Giants get it done under the roof.
Richmond versus the Bulldogs. This is a huge game, Dace.
It is. Look, I just wish Richmond had some more talent on the park and more players available. Unfortunately, they don't. They've got to get their better players starting a lot better than what they produced on the weekend against Fremantle. I was rather critical of Shea Bolton, who looked disinterested. He's somebody who can really start the fire for them and get them going. If they get out to a lead, you've got to give them a chance, but it's going to be too hard, I feel.
Bulldogs usually respond, and I think it's sometimes fake, but to a week of adversity, and they've had that this week, so I'll go for the Bulldogs, but not with great confidence.
Yeah, Dogs win. Dogs will get it done.
Up in Darwin, Gold Coast versus North Melbourne, Damo, do you give the Roos any chance?
No.
Cool.
Yeah.
Succinct. I like it. It's hard. You could,
See,
this is just covering your bases in case there's a miracle.
depends on the conditions. I'm thinking, like, what if it's a real scrappy, like one of those
Slippery
slippery
fest.
games?
But
and
why
it's
would that
40
make it better for North?
Oh, well, at least they can't get 100 kicked on them.
Well,
they might not get
they
100. I'll go Gold Coast then, all right.
Well, you couldn't tip North.
No, you can't tip them.
And if you did and they won.
They're going to win a game. We just don't know which
You
one.
reckon?
Yeah, they'll win a game.
There's no guarantee of that.
They'll
John.
win a game.
Okay.
Where?
It's
don't know.
not going to be wet. It's going to be 34 degrees and
be
yeah,
slippery.
but
It'll
under
be
one,
humid
under
as-
1
yeah,
mil.
It'll be
Yeah.
humid as buggery.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Collingwood versus West Coast at Marvel Stadium. One of only 2 games on Sunday. Of course, it is Mother's Day. A very important day.
Sneaky danger.
Yeah,
Sneaky danger.
Well,
game?
the Pies are going to have a lot of changes to the side that we saw roll out on Friday night.
Might check out Elliott unlikely. DeGoey
McCreary
not
out.
coming back in. McCreary as well with the concussion protocols, and Mitchell not
Schultz.
being able to be considered, and Schultz suspended.
Schultz for the left jab to the back of the head, which was bizarre.
No Waterman for the Eagles, though.
Ooh, that
Oh,
hurt.
no
And no-
Waterman and no Yo.
and no
They
Yo.
can't win with
Okay.
no Waterman, no Yo. If they were both playing, I reckon
Yeah,
it would be a
yeah.
danger game. No,
You've
that's,
always said
that's Peter Sumich and
And a cramping 7-gamer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, he might not play with that cramp. It looked pretty severe.
They might put him in a conditioning training block for 4 weeks and
it's
come back
smart.
when he's fitter.
Yeah, they might make him run over.
Speaking of teams with injury, rounding out round 9, Brisbane got to bring in some cattle for their game at Adelaide Oval versus Adelaide.
And the injury to which he referred to there on the Brisbane Lions side of the equation will mean that the Crows win.
I like Adelaide. I like what they're doing. I think they've found their mojo on offense in particular. They've got the right mix in the midfield, and the defence is holding up okay with Big Butsy back in the team. I think Adelaide win at home.
I'm giving Brisbane one last chance. I know I spoke about Adelaide with you, Joey, the other week and how important their half forwards are. You said they were Geelong-like, which is a great analogy, and we saw that Geelong really challenged the Lions. It's season on the line for both sides. If you're going to salvage anything, you have to win. I just keep getting sucked in with the Lions. Yeah, so for that reason, I'm tipping them.
Well, Joey gave us Freo as his outsider. What were your outsiders, Daisy and Damo?
I will make the Cats my certainty, and I'm going to give Brisbane the outsider in terms of a market, so I'll give them my outsider.
Was Carlton an outsider in that game?
That's almost 50-50, I think. I think it's
yeah.
even.
Can you give me
We'll
that?
give you Carlton.
Can you give me
Yeah,
Carlton?
you get a
Carlton.
1.5 start for Carlton.
Oh, is that it? Okay,
Yeah.
they are outsiders.
Yeah, they're outsiders. That's
Bulldogs are my certainty too.
And
by the
obviously Gold Coast are your certainty, Damo, from that question we
Silver.
posed earlier. You can catch every game live on Triple M, starting with Carlton versus Melbourne tomorrow night at the Triple MCG, following on from the Thursday rub with Jack Hever and Jay Clark, Isaac Smith and Kate McCarthy. This has been Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub, thanks to BWS with Joey, Daisy and Damo.